hate making packed lunches. Really, I absolutely hate it. So I've come up with a plan so I can make lunches for a whole term all in one go. I've been doing it for about 2 years now and it works really, really well. So I'm gonna show you how you can do it too. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. I release a video every Sunday on life hacks and organisation. So click the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. Right, I'm ready to start cooking, so let's go. So the key to making lunches quickly and making sure they're healthy is to have a plan. So I always sit down and write Monday to Friday and have a rough plan of what my daughter is going to eat every day. So then I can make sure there's a fruit, there's a vegetable, there's a carbohydrate, there's a dairy. So there's something every single day that she is gonna not only like, but is nutritious at the same time. So I quickly wrote up a menu and I'll type this on the computer as well, and then I'll pop it on the fridge. That way, if I'm not here, everybody else knows exactly what she's having the next day, rather than having the same thing 2 or 3 days on a run. So just for example, Mondays would be a piece of fruit, her vegetable would be cucumber, she would have a sandwich and a boiled egg. Tuesday would be a piece of fruit, she'd have some carrot sticks, some sausages and my homemade salsa, and some cheese and biscuits, and it goes on like this. My kids love little mini sausages, like proper pork sausages, not the Frankfurter ones. They like to eat these cold, dipped in sauce, and they're really, really good. Also, they love chicken drumsticks because kids love chicken cold, and chicken drumsticks are really affordable and they're really easy to make too. So I'm gonna start with the frozen sandwich. Now, many people will have nightmares of thinking about frozen sandwiches when they were a kid, but it's all about the way that you make them. If you make them wrong, they're gonna be terrible. So let me show you the way that I do mine. Mine defrost perfect. They're beautiful and they're fresh, they're fluffy, and this is the way to do it. First of all, it doesn't matter what bread you use, but make sure you buy it fresh on the day. I bought this 2 hours ago and I'm gonna start making the sandwiches now. If you use old bread and freeze it, once you defrost it, it's still gonna be old. So use very fresh bread. Always use butter on the bread. Butter acts as a barrier against any filling that you put inside. Meats are great for popping in sandwiches, so ham, beef, chicken, as long as you're buttering as the barrier against the bread, meat's absolutely fine. Vegemite, classic staple, my daughter loves a cheese and Vegemite sandwich. Now, when putting cheese on sandwiches, grated cheese works out better. I don't know why, but the substance remains the same. Sometimes sliced cheese can be a little bit rubbery, so do definitely use the grated cheese. Because I do cheese and biscuits for my daughter on some days as well, it's obviously cheaper to buy a big kilo block, grate half of it, and the other half can be used for cutting up into small pieces for the days that she has her cheese and biscuits. So other flavourings that work well on sandwiches, egg mayonnaise works really well. Just make sure you chop that egg really, really finely. You don't want big pieces because it will go rubbery. Tuna mayonnaise, again, a really good one. Just when you're using mayonnaises, use them sparingly. Don't go mental because it will, the barrier of the butter won't protect the bread if you're using too much. There's chutneys that you can use. Like I say, different types of hams, meats, all work really, really well when frozen and then defrosted. What doesn't work well is salads. Salads will not turn out well as well. So if you like putting salad on your kids' sandwiches, it's better just putting it in a separate bag. What you could do is use cut vegetables like capsicums, spinach, carrots, zucchini, eggplant. All those work really, really well, but you do have to cook them first. Let them go cold and then pop them on the sandwich once they are cold. It's actually a really beautiful flavour too. I'll put a link below on all my favourite fillings, and then you can take your choice and see what works for you and your child. So the next thing is to butter them all. I do find it easier if you leave the butter out because it's a lot easier to spread, and you want to do this as quickly as you can. So I'm going to use mortadella because my daughter likes it, and if I don't have enough mortadella then I will use some salami, which I have as well. The good thing about when you're doing this is you're buying everything in one go. So you know when you come to make sandwiches and then you look at your ham and it's like slimy because it's gone a bit old? This will never happen. So it's really good for budgeting because you never have to worry about going out and buying extras. I'm literally buying for these sandwiches. So when I finish at the end, I'll work out the cost, and it'll give you a good idea of how this is a really economical way of doing it. And to finish off, my daughter's favourite, which is cheese and Vegemite. Please no comments on how thickly or thinly I spread Vegemite. I'm from England, so I'm just trying my best. That's good, you actually can't see it on this video. So now for the fun part, which is putting the cheese on. So I put the sandwiches really, really close together, and then I literally just sprinkle it everywhere. Just watch that if you are doing a massive sandwiches like I am all in one go, that you don't start doing other jobs in between, because the problem with that is that your bread will start to go stale straight away because it's open in the air. So let's put the cheese on. I think I've got them all. So now finally you want to put the tops on. Okay, so now you've done that, you need to just chop them in half or quarters or however you do it. So once your sandwiches are in the required cutting form, you can either place them into something like a big Ziploc bag. These ones are IKEA, they're huge, I really like these ones. Or alternatively, you could use a tub and then maybe put some paper in between them. I used to use individual Ziploc bags, but I'm trying to reduce my plastic and found that that was a lot of waste. Hence why now I put them in these large ones, seal them, and then freeze them.
I know you deserve all you want, 'cause your heart's made of gold.
So these Ziploc bags take 6 sandwiches, and it's a real squeeze getting them all in. Just make sure you let any air out. I've got a bit of air there, so try and get as much air out as possible. There we go. So put them in a flat part of your freezer to freeze perfectly, and then every time you want one, they're really easy to get out. So I have 16 sandwiches now ready for the freezer. The good thing about sandwiches is once you take them out, they literally defrost in about an hour. So we also have chicken drumsticks for lunch. These are really cheap. I bought these today. They were less than $3 a kilo. So she will take this once a week, and I will put it with my homemade salsa. You can just bake them as they are, or you can put a bit of salt and pepper on them. But these take about 25 minutes, half an hour on about a 180 to 200 oven. So I'll pop these in now. So we also have pork chipolatas. They're always usually $2 for $10 in Woolworths, and there's 16 in each packet. So I'm just going to cook them all. She takes 3 on her chipolata day. So there's a few left over, but they're so yummy that once they're cooked, I can't help taking one. Just spread them out in a baking dish or a baking tray and just bake them as they are. Again, you can just pop them in the oven at the same time as the chicken if you're doing them all in one go like me. Easy, ready to go in the oven. So the next thing I'm going to make are pizza pinwheels. They're super easy to do. I use puff pastry. I usually just do a couple of sheets. It gives me about 20 pizza pinwheels. And I use my homemade sauce, which is in the link below on another YouTube video. I also use some grated cheese and whatever toppings you want, bacon, onion. I tend to keep mine vegetarian, so I'm going to use a red capsicum that I've got in the fridge. I'm also going to put some olives on mine. So the first thing you want to do is get your frozen sheet. I keep the backing on mine. It's just some plastic and it just helps you roll later on. So get your sauce. Now you don't want to drench it in sauce, and if you haven't got any sort of pasta sauce at hand, you can obviously use tomato ketchup, but I suppose we're trying to keep this healthy. We're trying to reduce the amount of salt and sugar our kids have, and so if you can make your own, that's great. So as I say, the link is in the description below to how to make mine, and I don't know if you can see, but I've actually got a few lumps of carrots in here as well, so there's nothing wrong with that. So the next thing you want to do is put your cheese on. You can use any type of cheese. You could even use Parmesan if your kids prefer a stronger flavour, but this is just tasty cheese that I use. And then put on whatever toppings you want. So I have some capsicum that I've already diced. Okay, so the next bit is probably the hardest bit, which is the actual rolling. So that's when the blue plastic underneath really comes in handy. So just remove the bottom bit of plastic and then just roll over really, really tightly. If you get a few holes, don't worry about it. The beauty about pastry is it's like Play-Doh. You can just put another piece on to fix it. And if you're like me, I always probably put too much topping on, so it spills out everywhere, but doesn't matter. Once it's cooked, it'll be fine. So then you want to cut about 1.5 centimeters thick. Don't worry if it oozes out, you can always make it look nicer afterwards. So I'm going to put my pizza pinwheels on a baking tray. I use these liners from Amazon because I'm trying to reduce waste, so I don't really like to use baking paper because a lot of it is non-recyclable. These work absolutely fantastic, so check them out. So just be careful when you're picking them up. Pop them on the tray and then just flatten them with the palm of your hand. Okay? And let's do that with the rest of them. So here we have the pizza pinwheels all ready to go. They can go in the oven with your chicken and your sausages if you did that. If not, you need it on a hot oven, maybe 200 for about 20 minutes. Now, people think I'm crazy for doing this, but it works for us. We go through cheese very, very quickly. And so if there's no cheese in the house, then I could be short. My daughter loves taking cheese and crackers to school. You can freeze Jack's crackers and you can freeze cheese, and they both defrost beautifully. Now, I used to do this and I used to bag them all up separately, but again, because I'm trying to reduce waste, I'm not going to use all those individual Ziploc bags. Instead, I will cut the cheese into good chunks. I will lay them on a baking tray and freeze them. Once the individual cheeses are frozen, I'll then throw them all in one bag. And then that way, all I have to do is grab a cheese from the freezer and just grab a few biscuits from the box. A lot of people buy things like cheese sticks. I don't buy anything like that. These are my cheese sticks. So these are going to go in the freezer now. So my sausages are first out of the oven. So just going to loosen them from the bottom. And I'm just going to throw them into a baking dish, just for them to cool down a bit quicker.
Know you deserve all you want, 'cause your heart's made of gold, but don't wait till you're
Okay, now I have them in a baking dish. I'm going to let these cool. Once they're cool enough to go in the freezer, then that's where they're going to be heading. Now the chicken's ready, so again, I'm going to move them onto a cooler dish for them to cool down quicker. I'm leaving a little gap in between all of them. So then once these go in the freezer, they're not going to stick together. And that way, once they're frozen, we can bag them up and just take one out at a time. My sausages are so good, but don't eat them hot. So my pizza pinwheels have just come out of the oven. They look and they smell delicious. So I'm gonna let these cool and then pop these in the freezer on these trays. Overnight, everything's been on a tray, freezing individually, and now everything is in these Ziploc bags. The reason I do it this way is because if you freeze a bake first, everything is already frozen, so nothing sticks together now because it's all frozen individually. So for example, these are my cheese cubes, so all I'm going to do is grab one of those out and put a few biscuits with it. Same with the sausages. If you put them in warm, they would all stick together. So now they've all been individually frozen and now they all move apart in the bag. With all of these things, I grab them out of the freezer the night before and place them into a lunchbox, and then I put that lunchbox in the fridge. By lunchtime the following day, everything is always defrosted, and come in these summer months, it's going to defrost a lot quicker, but it will stay cooler in the lunchbox for longer. So I really hope to enjoy my video all about how to make a term's worth of lunches all in one go. Please subscribe to my video and stay tuned because next week I'll be talking about meal planning and budgeting. See you soon.